It's knowing that your door is always open and your path is free to walk. It makes me tend to leave my sleeping bag rolled up and stashed behind your couch. It's knowing I'm not shackled by forgotten words and bonds and the ink stains that have dried upon some line. That keeps you in the back roads by the rivers of my memory. That keeps you ever gentle on my mind. It's not clinging to the rocks and ivy painted on their columns now that bind me. It's open and that somebody said because they thought we'd fit together walking. It's not knowing that the world will not be cursing or forgiving when I walk around the railroad track and find that you're moving on the back roads by the rivers of my memory, and hours you're just gentle on my mind. Though the wheat fields and the clotheslines and the junkyards and the highways come between us, and some other woman's crying to her mother 'cause she turned and I was gone, I still might run in silence, tears of joy might stain my face, and the summer sun might burn me till I'm blind. But not to where I cannot see you walking on the back roads by the rivers flowing gentle on my mind. I dip my cup of soup back from a gurgling, crackling cauldron in some train yard. My beard a rustling towel and a dirty hat pulled low across my face. Through cup hands round the tin can, I pretend to hold you to my breast and find that you're waiting from the back roads by the rivers of my memories, ever smiling, ever gentle on my mind. Wonderful Friday night, everybody. Chris McDonald with you as we wrap up a week here on the McFiles News Network. And we always are glad to have this gentleman with us. We've got him by phone tonight. We'll have him by Zoom later on this month, the 1st of February. But good to have my dear buddy Jeemes Akers on the phone with me. How are you, sir? Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and happy 2024 to you. How you been?
I've been doing well. Getting in our new house here, and 2024 looking forward to with great anticipation. The book's doing okay, and so all's right with the world.
All is right with the world. It's good to hear from you. I wanted to bring you on for the first half of the program tonight to talk to you about several things. The main thing, woke up this morning to the breaking news that we had attacked, the U.S. had fired missiles into Yemen to attack the Houthis, Jeemes, but this had been really, this exchange had been going on for a while without us really addressing it. They had been sending rockets in attacks. I think there's been like 100 and I want to say 140 plus attacks on our ships, 134 in the last 3 months since October the 7th, with no response whatsoever. And then we've got this bizarre incident over the weekend where the Department of Defense head, Austin, goes in the hospital with cancer. Don't tell nobody. He's AWOL. President goes missing for 3 days. Can't find him. He's AWOL. And then I understand this morning that from his bed, hospital bed, Austin orders these strikes on these rebels. Now, I've listened to the back and forth all day, the talking heads, and they're not too smart. And you've got the warmongers that want war. You've got people like Matt Gaetz out there slamming Lindsey Graham for agreeing that this was the right thing to do. And I like Matt Gaetz, and I'm no fan of Lindsey Graham, but this should have been done earlier. And I disagree with Matt that this was not the right thing to do. And I wouldn't agree with anything the way Joe Biden handles it. But Jeemes, I don't see that we couldn't have, if we kept on letting him do this, those missiles eventually would not have just been started to target our ships. They'd have been possibly aimed at one of our cities here in this nation. And I'm just curious, you've been in this field and analyzed these things, and I don't see any other response we could have taken. And I believe we should have had this sooner than later, because the world's in a chaotic state tonight, and we need leadership, and we've got no leadership anywhere, and this is a dangerous, dangerous place for America to be and the world.
I agree. It was long overdue. You had, when the decision was made, the defense secretary is missing in action. He's in the hospital. His number 2 person that's running the Pentagon is on vacation in Puerto Rico. When they originally decided that they may have to put together a strike package, Biden was on vacation in the Caribbean, and long distance tells the Pentagon that they have to put together a strike package. He thought he was talking to his defense secretary, who was not in the Pentagon, but was back and forth between the hospital. And so it is just a typical ball of wax that has characterized this administration. But they had to do something. They decided on the first day of January that they were going to give diplomacy another chance. So you have Blinken going to the Middle East. You have a number of other diplomats. There's a strong warning issued through whatever channels we can get to the Houthis,
right,
to tell them not to do anything further. The next day, after they received the warning, they launched their largest attack on shipping in the Red Sea. They did. And we just had no choice. And so you had you had strikes. It was 2:30 in the morning. You could tell the Pentagon and the Biden administration was trying to couple together allies. I think there was minimal participation from the Brits. They flew some aircraft out of Cyprus. We had a couple of submarine-launched missiles. Every time something like this takes place, you can almost see all the defense contractors saying, let us have a piece of the action so we can show off what we can do. You had the newest Hornets that operated off the deck of the USS Eisenhower. And so you had 70 airstrikes, 60 sites, 60 targets or whatever, and with targets spread all over the Houthi part of Yemen, and they only occupy about a third of the country of Yemen. The government's been powerless. There's been a civil war. There's been sort of a ceasefire. So not much has happened there. It is just a mess. And it is typical of what's going on. The Houthis are in no position, nor is anybody else in the Middle East. None of them will accept any of these Palestinian refugees. They refuse to accept them, but they're all using them as an excuse to hit the United States or Israeli targets.
Right.
It's just crazy what's going on.
Well, and the Houthis, I think I read one of the stories this afternoon that their slogan is sort of along the lines of Hamas: God is great, kill the Jews, kill America, America's bad, evil, the Jews are doomed for destruction. I mean, it's like a page written out of the Hamas chapter of a covenant of death. And then, James, I think the big elephant in the room, and I think you'll agree with this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Yemen is not is not a big player in the Middle East as far as size and money. But the big dog in that fight is Iran. That these Houthi missiles have been traced back to the Gulf of Hormuz, I should say, and that I think there's only like a 35-mile radius between Iran and that Gulf and being able to funnel these weapons into Yemen. And again, it looks like on a map that these Houthis are concentrated in the western half of the nation, but Iran's got their fingers on it. And $1 million question to you, buddy: do you see us having the guts and the bagunas between our legs to confront the Iranians at some point? Because ultimately, that's the head of the snake, is it not?
Yes. Yeah, and then Iran did their own sort of shipboarding operation here a few days ago. So you have to go back. In February 2021, prior to that time, the State Department had designated the Houthis as a terrorist organization. That description, that designation, was rescinded by the Biden administration. Why did they do it? They were trying to cozy up to Iran. After the American strikes, you had the Saudis, who should be our biggest allies in the region outside of Israel, but the Biden administration has absolutely fumbled the ball.
Yes.
With dealing with the Saudis. So instead, even though the Saudis have been bombing Yemen and the Houthis for years, they come out with a statement that they have great concern over this Western military operation inside of Yemen. It is absolutely crazy what is going on, and everybody, to use an old Kentucky phrase, are bending over and grabbing their ankles out of fear of Iran, and it's just crazy. I think probably sooner or later, the Iranian targets that are on the target deck, the target list, they're going to have to pull those out, dust them off, and be ready to hit a few places in Iran. Otherwise, they will just continue this whole campaign of just hitting us, encouraging their proxy groups to hit at us everywhere around the region. And all of this basically ignores, you called Iran the big elephant in the room. There's another big elephant just north of Israel, and that's Hezbollah.
Hezbollah, yes.
The army of God. And we had in recent days, you had a drone strike that took out a leading Hamas commander who was hiding in Beirut. And you had a drone strike that took out one of Hezbollah's field commanders that was in charge of the cross-border operations against Israel. It also happens to be that fellow that was assassinated in an SUV is a relative of Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah. And Hezbollah, for its own internal reasons, largely because they know if they get too involved, if they cross over a red line of sorts, they are going to get whacked, just like Gaza. And when they do that, all their leverage in the region is gone, and Nasrallah knows it. And so you have an elephant to the north, you have an elephant to the east, you have Israel with all it can bite off and chew in Gaza, and of course you have the world community now suddenly forgetting the barbaric attacks and people murdered that caused this whole thing, are trying to label, Israel.
I know.
It's just crazy what's going on.
Well,
it's absolutely crazy.
I think it's more than crazy. It's demonic. I think the devil and his demons are behind a lot of this, James. But I got to ask you a question, man. This is a serious question because, look, I'm a student and a teacher of Bible prophecy. I'm a student of history, and I've always watched the Middle East over the years. I've never seen it. I know there had probably been times that in times past people think that maybe it was this bad, but I don't believe we've ever been at the precipice of a world conflict like we are tonight with these players involved. And you and I both know if America attacks Iran, that it's going to set off a domino effect because Iran's going to turn around and probably go after Israel. I don't doubt Iraq will not join into that. I heard the Saudis today. This is the complicated nature of the Middle East. The Saudis have been attacking the Houthis for years, for months, years. We attack them, and they're telling America tonight to restrain ourselves, that they don't want to see a conflict. And James, the Houthis have been attacking the Saudis. So that's how complicated these connections and these alliances get, but they're all united. And maybe hatred's a strong word, but they're all united in their angst against Israel. And see, that's what unites this bunch. They're no friend of America, and they're certainly no friend of Israel. And this administration is just a bunch of dumb clowns. And again, you've got this Austin character that's something out of a comic book. I mean, he reminds me of Elmer Fudd or the Roadrunner trying to trace the coyote, or coyote trying to chase the Roadrunner. I mean, I don't understand how we've reached this point, buddy, but it's a dangerous world tonight. What do you think happens if we do attack Iran? We want to fool ourselves that we can play sort of a middle role. Let's take the Houthis, for example. Their slogan during their insurrection of the past few years is death to America, death to Israel, damnation to the Jews. And we are fooling ourselves if we think we can somehow put leverage on Israel to act in a civilized manner. That's like after these strikes, Chris, every spokesman that they brought up to the stage said these strikes were designed to minimize casualties. We're the only one that's playing by a sort of set of rules in the area. That's a great point.
Unless we're forcing our allies to play by a set of the rules.
Yes.
The rest of these guys have no rules.
And let me interject this while I'm thinking about it. Biden and his cronies got the UK to go in on it, and they've had protests in London today about those attacks, and the left in this country is going Armageddon crazy over it. But you got people like Matt Gaetz out there tonight, and I like Matt. This is not a thing against Matt, but you've got this coalition of people that believe that we're to sit back and not do anything. And I would ask people like Matt and these leftists, and these protesters, what do you want America to do? Do you want the Houthis to keep sending missiles into these ships until somebody's killed? Do you want them to send a missile into a city in America where thousands might be killed? Because, James, I don't doubt that they got missiles that could reach over here if they really put their mind to it. They could launch a missile into Israel, definitely. Maybe America, I don't know. But the threat grows by the day that it's not put down. Now, what the Yemen people do after this remains to be seen. But I will tell you this, every day this escalates, we are growing closer and closer to a conflict that the genie's going to get out of the bottle, friend, and that genie ain't going back in the bottle for a mighty long time, because if this thing goes up in smoke in the Middle East, brother, we got World War III. We have got World War III.
Yeah, you won't be able to stuff the genie in the bottle. And again, that's why I brought up, Chris, Hezbollah earlier. There's an interesting article in Politico, and it cited congressional testimony from the head of the Center for Counterterrorism that I used to work with quite a bit. And it cited the real danger of Hezbollah in this country, that if things went, all the mud started to hit the wall, that Hezbollah has incredible network of assets in this country, and we are going to see what happened to Israel in this country before this is all over with. Let me make a couple other broader points to your audience here. You know, it's really you and I are both students of prophecy. It is a dangerous time in the Middle East.
Yes.
All three major religions in the Middle East are looking forward to a coming Messiah.
That's true. Great
Jesus
point.
Christ for the Christians, a Messiah yet to be named for the Jews, and especially for Shia, the Shia world in Islam, of which Houthis are generally considered to be a part. You have the Mahdi. You have the guided one that is promised to come in the Hadith, not in the Quran, but in the Hadith. And it is strongly entrenched belief, this messianic belief among the Shia especially. And so, you know, the old history teacher in me wants to come out here. The Houthis are really one of three parts of Shia Islam.
Right.
The largest part, 85% of the Shia, and remember, it's mostly Sunni when you're talking about Muslims around the world. The Shia only constitute 15% of the Islamic population. And of that small 15%, the largest majority of those are what we call 12ers. You know, what unites the Shia world is that they believe that a direct descendant of Muhammad has to have final control. And that was the case in Yemen. Those are the imams. That was the case in Yemen for 1,000 years until 1962. The Houthis are one of those groups that are trying to turn back the clock to the age of the imams in Yemen and that part of the Middle East. It is really a fascinating group. But all of this is taking place, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know, Chris, but when I used to teach classes when I was a visiting professor, I would always ask the kids, what are the 5 trouble spots that are front and present today that you should be thinking about? And if I would ask a class that today, It would be this spreading, escalating conflict in the Middle East that has the danger of growing into the world war you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Second one be the Russo-Ukrainian war. And the third one is what's going on now between China and Taiwan. This weekend, 19 million Taiwanese are going to go to the polls in the election. And the favored candidate, according to the polls, is a person that China detests. And that's coming up this weekend as all of this is going on elsewhere around the world. Then you have on the Korean Peninsula, Korea and South Korea. There's been artillery exchanges and this, that, and the other. And then if you look south of us to Argentina, Ecuador is in a case of complete civil breakdown. Nicaragua is threatening to expand its borders to divert the attention of its people that are forced to eat rats now to survive. And this whole world is like chaos at the geostrategic level. Everywhere you look, there's chaos.
Do you attribute that to the lack of leadership here?
Well, that may be part of it, but quite honestly, you'll know what I'm talking about here. I'm not sure many other people understand. It is a spirit of rebellion
Absolutely
and
it
chaos that has infiltrated the entire globe. And we're starting to see the results of it. We thought we could insulate ourselves from it. We no longer can. It has infiltrated the entire world. I have never seen in my lifetime such restlessness, such chaos, such evil being openly paraded, and in some cases, worshipped.
Yes.
All of that comes straight out of Paul's description of the deception that's going to spread towards the end of time.
Jeemes, do you think the normal American, and I'm not sort of speaking to this audience, because this audience that I've got, very conservative. They know I love them out there. We have a pretty steady audience that listens to us every week. For the most part, and I may not be able to speak for all of them, but I would say that 90% of my audience are concerned about what you just described. But I'm going to ask you about the average American out there beyond this camera that is in their day-to-day life and what they keep up with, what they talk about at dinner, what they post on social media. I don't see a lot of concern in looking at the post and looking at some of the stuff that people are more concerned about. And look, I'm a sports fan. I get it. There's been a lot of, news in the sports world the last week. There's a lot of news in the entertainment world. But those things, in light of what we're talking about tonight, Jeemes, it's like a speck in a big pond, brother. I'm going to tell you something. This is real-time danger for our families. Do you think the average American gets this tonight, how dangerous that this situation is? And do you think they even care?
My personal opinion is they've been deceived. We have had now successive generations of kids coming through colleges and universities that have been given what I call a dumbed down education. They're no longer capable of thinking for themselves. They can't express themselves in any sort of coherent way.
That's right.
Longer than a Twitter bite or whatever that they use on social media.
That's right.
And they have been they just have been deluded. They have no sense of what's going on. When I talk to my my grandkids, they're really good kids. But I'm not sure they have a clue as to what's going on in the world or the significance of it. And that lies squarely at the feet of our government, of our education system, of our churches, and at the feet of our judicial system, who have been complicit in this whole orchestrated campaign to dumb down individuals. And the elites just think that the average human being in the United States, the average citizen, is so dumb that they can't make decisions, so they're going to make decisions for them. And I think that's the world we live in. I think we have generations now that are sleepwalking into disaster.
But I couldn't agree with you more, and I couldn't have worded it any better than what you just did. Couple of quick things. I could talk with you all night. I want to take some of the questions from our audience here in a few minutes. I hadn't talked to you since the first of the year, and even just maybe the latter part of December, we found out that nearly 276,000, and that number is the government's number, so that means it's probably triple that, of actual illegal aliens that have come across the border. Since fiscal year 2024, we've had 500,000, according to the government, their own figures. Excuse me. In October, we had 276. In February, we had about 256. So that's roughly 530,000. That's over 500,000, Jeemes. Can we sustain this illegal invasion? Is this not an invasion of what you're seeing? And it goes back to the dumbing down. Do you think people understand or underestimate the danger that invasion is having on all parts of the country? Because these people are not just stopping in Texas and Arizona for tea. They're being shipped all over the nation, buddy. Are they not?
No, they're being bused to other places. No, the short answer is that if you study political science, every nation state has two primary obligations. One is to defend the entity itself, and the second one is to control the borders.
That's right. That's right.
And we have abandoned, because of a ridiculous, in my opinion, neo-Marxist type of philosophy, that globalism is preferable to American values and culture. And so in that way of thinking, open up the borders, let anybody in who chooses to come in. There's no other major country in the world outside of the Western world that's dealing with this problem. China doesn't have a problem of illegal aliens coming in at the rate of 200,000 a month or whatever. Russia doesn't have that problem. Japan doesn't have that problem. It is only in the Western world, led by the United States, that we feel sorry for these folks. You know, I think I am alongside of probably almost everybody that's listening. I am really in favor of people coming to this country that want to abide by our traditions, want to obey our laws, want to make this country a better place for them and a better place for themselves, economic opportunity, if they do it the right way.
I'm with you, buddy. And again, in a real world that operates, but let me tell you something about this. Why China don't have illegals, Jeemes, they'd kill them. Somebody comes into China's border illegally, they don't get out alive. You go into a Middle East country, they don't get out alive. I mean,
That's
crap,
right.
If we go to Mexico and they catch an American coming over illegally, they're not going to see the light of day. They're going to be thrown into Mexican prison and see you later. And we'll send your remains to your next of kin, you know? We're the only nation that allows this stuff. And it burns me to the crisp, buddy, because we're doing it to ourselves. This ain't something that we can't control. We're doing this to ourselves, are we not?
We are, and let me tell you where it's going to come home to roost. We don't keep book on anybody that's coming across that border.
No, we don't.
And we now are faced by adversaries that are trying to infiltrate cells that they set up in this country, and they're waiting on the go command. And we have allowed them to set up shop. And we've closed our eyes to the threat. And down the road, you can write it down, invest it, and draw interest on it. We are going to pay for that decision big time.
Yes, we are. Folks, if you're listening to us tonight, you're watching a special live McFiles Friday night with my dear buddy Jeemes Akers. We're so grateful to have him. If you've got a question for Jeemes, we've opened the chat up in both Facebook and YouTube tonight. And if you'll put those questions in there, we'll ask him. We got him for another 10 minutes or so, 15. Jeemes, going back to this situation in the Middle East, the situation in Israel has, I'm glad you brought something up a while ago, and I think it's important for us to mention this. The actual horror of what happened on October the 7th has been basically drowned out by the voices of these people that have made these other issues the news. And we cannot forget, we just cannot forget what happened on October the 7th, can we? Because that is I think it's a line in the sand between civilized society and barbarism in the world. And if somebody can't see the difference in the two, those people have got more than a mental disorder. They're just flat out demon possessed. That's just my opinion. What's yours?
Not far from yours. If you would have told me 10 years ago that there would have been a barbaric invasion of a country that was our ally, with the circumstances that happened to 1,200 or so Israelis, and within 2 weeks there would be demonstrations on the streets of our own country celebrating those atrocities, I would have said, you're crazy.
Yeah.
That has happened. That has happened in the period of 10 years. And Israel's planning and is based on the fact that they only have X amount of days when it comes to any military operation to get things done before world opinion and the United States popular opinion turns against them, and they have to call off the dogs. And we're seeing that happen right now.
Without a doubt, buddy. And our country is putting pressure on them to do that. And I told people, I think me and you had this conversation before the holidays, you know, I had no faith that Biden and his cronies were going to back Israel's play, no matter how much they were telling us they would. And Blinken and all of them are going behind the scenes, are visiting over there, putting secret pressure on Bibi Netanyahu. And if I'm Bibi Netanyahu, I'm telling them to mind their own business. I know Israel needs America and so forth, but Israel has got to defend her borders, James. She's got to defend her nation. If she don't, she ain't going to have a nation. She's not going to have a nation. And we don't understand that she is our only ally over there. And if she's gone, brother, you're dealing with a bunch of people that hate us more than they hate her.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the problem. At root, they hate Jesus Christ.
Amen, buddy. Amen. Thank you.
And the Jews are number two. If we, I think we may have mentioned this before, maybe not. If we had a cartel, a drug-crazed cartel that came across the border into Texas, about 15 to 20 miles inside our borders, killed what would be the equivalent of our population, maybe 2,500, 3,000, 4,000 people in the most barbaric way possible, filmed it for the satisfaction of their family back home, then skedaddled back across the border. Do we honestly think that we would do nothing about that?
No, we would do something about it. I'd hope we do something about it.
I would hope we would. And we are expecting Israel to operate a war with a hand tied behind its back. It's just, in my view, it's absurd.
Folks, if you got a question for Jeemes, please put it in the chat. I'm giving you a chance right now for about 10 minutes. If you got a question or a comment, put it in now. We've opened the chat up. We told you twice. Don't wait till later because we're about to close it back here in a minute. If you got a question, Facebook or YouTube, go ahead and put it in there. Jeemes, I got a question about the domestic situation, and I've got to ask you this. That speech that Biden gave right after the new year, January 5th, which was just a few days ago, a week ago, he just ripped the MAGA community, ripped Donald Trump, beating his fist, screaming, and he seemed pretty coherent to me. And then after these big speeches that he gives, trashing Republicans and trashing MAGA folks, then he walks around like an Alzheimer's patient in shops and the White House and the, places that he goes missing for 3 days like he has this week. Do you think this Alzheimer's stuff is an act, or do you think that he's actually mentally incapacitated and that's just part of this, that he don't have any sense? It's hard to control the real world and his anger, and because it sure does strike me that when he wants to get something crazy passed or he wants to get something crazy out there, he sure does talk pretty clear to me. But when he's pressed to have an answer or lead, all of a sudden he acts stupid. And that's just an opinion. I'm just curious how you see that.
There are two possible explanations. One is the one you're hinting at, is that he's playing a duplicitous role for his own political advantage, and he knows essentially what he's doing. The second one I would suggest to you may be a function of the meds that he's on.
Right.
He has, I have said on this program before, the people that earn their money the most in Washington, D.C. are the people that keep Biden standing upright and lucid during conversation. And I think what we are seeing with Biden is simply the up and down of all of these medications, this cocktail that he has to be on just to give the appearance of being lucid. And so he will be lucid at times when he's most passionate about a topic. For instance, this decision to strike the Houthis was in the White House by himself. He didn't ask anybody else's opinion. He got the opinions from the Pentagon and the people that were in the room with him. But by all accounts, he was the one that made the decision.
Right.
And so that there are points at which he can make a decision, and where that point is, and when he sort of trips off into la la land, then it's going to be for historians to decide, was that by design, or was that by a byproduct of medications and other things that are going on in the guy's brain. There was a really interesting analytic projection by one of the leading experts, one of the leading senior analysts at one of the major banks, that came out and it hit the press, that he speculated that Biden would not run in 2024 that he would drop out of the race as a result of a combination of his own physical frailties and his growing unpopularity, and that he would drop out of the race.
Right.
And I thought that was a pretty gutsy call to make for somebody that has a track record of pretty conservative forecasts. And I thought it was interesting. What would happen in that case? You know, there would be a real scramble on the margins to take up the mantle. You know, if your guess would be as good as mine, who would pick it up and run?
It's a great question. We had a discussion about that this week, and I think all bets are, you know, on a lot of folks. Hey, I got a couple of great questions for you. One, Corey Aguilar, tremendous question tonight. She says, wouldn't it be the perfect time to attack America? No leadership and a weak military right now. What's your thoughts on that? I think that's a great question. It's great. And look, we've been sort of saying this for months. Look, the door's wide open, James. Weak leadership always attracts enemies. It always attracts blood in the water. And look, I'm not probably even as open or acumen to this as you are, because you've served in this field. Have you ever seen our military and our nation be as unprepared for something like this in the history of our country? I've not. In my 59 years on this earth, I have had a lot of problems with a lot of past presidents, but I've never laid my head down at night scared that we might get up and America may not be here the next morning like I have been these last 3.5 years.
No, I think our military is as weak as it's been probably since prior to World War II.
I do too.
The leadership has never been. You know, if you study, I'm a historian, if you study the rise and falls of great empires, there is one consistent thing that happens to a great empire before it collapses, and that is a total absence of leadership. And that is what we are seeing right now in spades. And I don't care whether you're talking about the people that are heading our military, who have traded political correctness for preparation of the troops to fight off a potential invasion. I mean, we can't even recruit enough young people to fill the ranks. We're having to cut back on all the key areas because, you know, we cannot convince a generation of our youth that there are things in life worth fighting for, freedom being one of them.
Yeah. Two excellent questions coming up for you here. Jamie Wright, she says, I would like to know what the crime rate is in the USA now compared to when Trump was in office, and also how much disease do you think has crossed our border since Biden has taken office in his walk of roses? Mary, I'll get to your question next because yours is good too. But James, her point is well taken, and I meant to ask you this about the situation in the Middle East. I don't think President Trump could have stopped all of this, but I will tell you this. I do not believe in my heart of hearts that Hamas would have been brave enough to do what they did on October the 7th with Trump in office, because they know what would have happened. China, Russia, all of these superpowers that are flexing their muscle tonight, or these nations, they respect strength, and we've got none, and it's blood in the water. And the criminal element in this country has also exploded under this administration, because you got judges that are being told not to put people in jail for killing people. What say you, buddy?
I understand her point. I don't have the statistics to back up what I think she's coming at. I have never seen the degree of lawlessness.
Yes.
That I have in our country, and all of those are spiritual things that happen when a country's leaders, its political leaders and its judges especially, turn their back on the God of creation. Lawlessness is one of the things that will happen. Another thing that'll happen that she didn't mention is that the very ground, it says in the Old Testament, will vomit up the evil doings of the people that are running the land. So we are going to see one natural disaster after another. And it has nothing to do with climate change. It has everything to do with the spiritual blindness of the leaders of this country.
Yeah, with you there. Rosemary's question, and Corey, I'm going to get yours next. Has Hamas been declared a terrorist organization by the U.S.? If so, why are we allowing protests in our country? Well, that's a complicated question because we do have a free country, James, but I will say this. When you're threatening a certain race of people on these college campuses, it's no longer free speech to me. That is a threat to people's lives, and somebody needs to go to jail. You can't go and threaten somebody with murder. You just can't do it. And we should not be allowing people to threaten the Jews with genocide and basically say blank the Jews and kill the Jews. That's, to me, that is genocidal. Now, the Hamas situation, it's actually not a bad question because I'm wondering, has the Biden administration taken them off the terrorist watch list? Because they did the Houthis, and is Hamas even a terrorist organization under our code of conduct here in America tonight?
Well, let me speak to one that I know much more about. Hezbollah now officially is a part of the governance structure of Lebanon. And I was part of all of these debates. How can you declare an organization a terrorist organization if they legitimately win elections and they're helping run a government?
That's very true.
It puts the State Department in a real bind, and that's the same with Hamas. Hamas was run; they defeated Abbas and his group. They defeated them in elections, and so that's why all of this sympathy for the Gazans, who just a few weeks ago were celebrating when Jews were dragged in their streets and being pelted and said nothing.
They were celebrating. I've got...
And so,
go ahead.
Let me get to one other thing, Chris, real quick.
No, you're fine.
The anti-Semitism, the surge of anti-Semitism is absolutely demonic.
Yes, it is, buddy.
Period.
Yes, it is.
Period. And that people can make whatever excuses they want to, but that whole train of thought is demonic. Period.
This final question, this three people are asking basically the same thing. It's funny how that happens sometimes. Crystal Neff, Brett Lucas, and Corey Aguilar. I'm going to ask Corey's question, but it's got a caveat to it. So let me ask the question. She says, with low enlistment, twofold question, Jeemes, and we'll wrap it up on this. Do you believe the military will lower their standards for recruitment? And then Crystal and Brett both asked the question about the draft. And she says, do you think they will reinstate the draft? And Brett says, if they do reinstate it, what age groups? What's your thoughts on that? It's a twofold question, but that's a huge... I got a 21-year-old, and I've shared this on the show. I may have shared it one night when I was with you. It's got my 21-year-old's attention because he's asking his dad about it. He don't even get into politics, but he's asking his dad, are they going to reinstate the draft? And he ain't even into this stuff. So these kids are thinking about it and worried about it. What's your thoughts on the military and what they're going to do?
I think the military has already started lowering its standards. Their target goals for recruitment are so far below what they expect to get that they have no choice but to lower their standards, and they have ridiculous standards in other areas, and in social correctness and the like. But in terms of the quality of young person that's coming to the military, I think they're already lowering their standards. That's not something that we should be worried about in the future. We should be worried about it now. Will they ever reinstate the draft? Would we have? I remember the draft. I remember when my number was pulled out in a draft lottery, and I was destined to go to Vietnam. I remember the draft. I remember flying in an airplane in the Gulf of Tonkin when they took away the draft, and it was an all volunteer military. And I remember the difference in the caliber of young people that I served with when the draft was in effect and when an all-volunteer army was in effect. In essence, you're just paying a young person to rent out a part of their life to go to the military.
Right.
And so if I was king for a day, every able-bodied young man and young woman in this country would have to do a term of service of some sort.
Well, Israel does that.
Singapore does that.
Yeah.
I lived
in
Singapore.
Yeah. Israel requires their kids to serve at least a year in the military when they get out of high school. Maybe 2 years, but I think it's one. I know at least it's one.
And we're one of the few countries that doesn't have an obligation of some sort. We have gone so overboard on individual liberties and rights that nobody talks about the benefits of discipline, of maturity, and all of those things that come with a solid military training. You know, I wouldn't live those years again for any amount of money. But what I learned during that period of time, you know, helped set me up for success later on. And we have sold the military short, you know, in terms of what it can provide for our young people. That's my view.
Do you think it's coming back, the draft?
I don't see any way without an emergency of such dire circumstances that I can't even imagine it. I cannot imagine that anybody in the administration or future administration or in Congress or in a future Congress would have the guts to do that.
Do you think Trump, final question from me, he was on air last week basically saying he's going to deport all these illegals. Is that an impossibility to do? Is that something he can do, or do you think that's just... And it's nothing against Trump, because I was with him. I was with him 1,000,000%. That's how you got to do it. You got to deport these people. But, Jeemes, is it even possible to find them at this point? As we'll wrap it up on this. Yeah,
I think, and again, this is nothing against Trump, but I think that makes for a better soundbite than it does realistic policy right
Bingo.
now.
And I'm with you on that. Totally with you on that. I'm totally with you on that, buddy. Listen, man, it's been such a good Friday night with you. We're going to get you back on with Zoom just in a few weeks, because I'm going to probably be getting you on regularly with everything going on right now. We're going to really need your help and expertise on this. And thank you so much for being with me. I hope you have a great new year. Congratulations on the new place. I'm looking forward to seeing you this year in person, meeting you. And we'll talk to you again another night. Thank you so much, Jeemes. I'm going to give you, before I go, give you a couple of minutes. Tell everybody about your book and final thoughts, and we'll wrap it up.
I encourage anybody in the audience that may think that I have a little bit of sense in what I say to go to Jeemes, Jeemes, Akers, Akers, all one word, .com. And there you will find my website, which has a short bio. It has information about the books. It has information about the other things that I write, the message that I send out periodically. And it's been a real blessing so far. We've heard nothing but positive results coming back. And I just sent off, Chris, the wording for the second book. So it is in the works. Hopefully within 2 or 3 weeks we'll have the second book of the trilogy out there.
Yeah. Circle.
And my
Circle.
and my
yeah. Go ahead.
And my final exhortation to everyone, and it's the same one that I closed our last show with, my time with you. All of these things are dangerous in a prophetic sense. God has his eye on Jerusalem, so the Middle East is always going to be front and center when it comes to geostrategic things. But God is on his throne, and he is not shaking with the latest developments of what happens with the Houthis, what happens in Gaza,
That's right, buddy.
or any place else in the Middle East. God is in control, and he is a good God.
Amen,
and if you put your trust in him, then any sort of anxiety that you have about the news that you read or whatever will get swallowed up in his love for you.
That's so beautifully said, my friend. Listen, I'm looking forward to seeing you this year. God bless you, Jeemes, and I'll be in touch with you. And thank you for jumping on tonight, on this Friday night. And I'm grateful for you, my friend, and your service. And if you see Brad Johnson, I talked to him tonight. Please make him behave, and him and Elvis. I keep hearing all these rumors coming out of his area. Him and Elvis are having these wild parties at night. And don't tell him not to make me come up there and chaperone him. Okay, that's all I got to say. Bless you, friend.
Yeah, well, keeping Brad in line may be a task too tall.
Too tall for it. Absolutely. Bless you, my buddy. Have a good night. Thank you, Jeemes.
Blessings, Chris. Always good to be with you, my friend.
Always a pleasure to have you too, buddy. God bless. Have a good night, man. Thank you. Jeemes Akers, everybody. Put some fire in that house. What a good guy right there. I'm looking forward to seeing him this year, and we're grateful for all you. My voice is out tonight. I was going to do a new show, and I just prayed about it this afternoon, and James came to mind. He always answers the bell. Brad Johnson, speaking of Brad, me and Brad have a good time ragging each other. He'll be with us next week, perhaps the next. Next week's going to be a little sketchy because we're headed to Houston, Texas, a week from tonight. If you're in the greater Houston area, we're going to be at the Hyatt Hilton in Kingswood for the beginning of a 2-day, it's really a night and then a whole day of Saturday teaching on prophecy, Bible prophecy. A lot of these things you've been hearing about in our morning studies on Wednesday night and Sunday night, our face shows. We're going to be bringing it to you live this year and have a chance to fellowship with you. My dear buddy John McTurnan, he's hosting this, and we are going to do our best to stream it, but don't count on it. We can't promise that we can get it live, but we'll definitely record them and upload the shows. But the best thing to do for you, if you're in the Southeast Texas area, or if you can make it, come be with us. And that way you can stream it live there. That's how you'll hear it live. But it's going to be some good stuff. I'll be teaching 3 sessions. John will be teaching 3. It's going to be a time of prayer. We're going to have a Q&A. We'll have some lunch. We'll break for fellowship. It's not going to be you have to sit there for 9 hours straight. It's going to be sort of a broken schedule, but sessions every 2 hours starting at 10 o'clock Saturday morning. But the rally since Friday night begins at 7 p.m. Central. We'll be going 7 to 9. Me and John will be sort of tag teaming, but John will be the main speaker Friday night. I'll be the main speaker Saturday night. But in between, John's going to be dealing with the Hamas covenant. He's going to be dealing with Jerusalem, the city. I'm going to be dealing with Israel and prophecy, Israel and the land, and also the church in Israel. We're going to be talking about the ancient hatred as it relates to some of this church anti-Semitism. And John and me both are going to have a Q&A with you. We're going to sit down in one of these sessions and take your questions live, the audience at least, and then we're going to have a time of prayer for Israel during that 2-day conference, and I'm excited about it. This is probably what I should have been doing all along. Our events last year, they were, I hate to say they weren't well attended. That's a bad thing, because I appreciate all those that came out. And we had folks in Kansas City come all the way from South Dakota, and that meant so much to me, you that came out and was with us during those sessions, and even the ones in 22. But a lot of those, as I've looked back over the year, we were trying to do something that it just was not a fit for really this network, because we was hoping that, you know, we would have hundreds of people come out that in the country, and we didn't have that. Or 50. I would have taken 50. I think our biggest crowd in all of them was about 40. And I'm not knocking anybody from that. I'm just saying, we've talked, I've prayed about this hard since the summer, and this is where we're headed this year. This is what we're going to be doing this year. We may have a few meet and greets through the year, but these prophecy conferences is my wheelhouse, and I'm playing to my strength, and that's sort of what the Lord told me to do. And we got a book coming out first of the year, sometime this year, Departing from the Faith. We're going to have a follow-up book this year, or two maybe. I know one book we're going to be writing on the end times. We're going to be writing on these very things that we're talking about. And then we're going to be dealing with some other subjects this year in written form. So please be with us if you can. We will say this: if you would like to donate to our network and help us with that cost, we certainly welcome it. The best way to do it is Zelle and chrismc44@gmail.com or paypal.me/themcfiles. And we're grateful for those of you that are always helping us. But if the Lord lays something on your heart to do a little extra this next week or so, it'll be most welcome, because there will be expense in traveling and the back and forth, and also the hotel itself. And I will appreciate whatever help you can give. And I don't have any qualm asking you for it, because this is kingdom work, and this is the network work. This is our faith side of the network, and so forth. I wished I had more of a voice tonight, because I had a lot of news stories I wanted to share with you. We'll try to do that one night next week. It's just been a tough week. I want to thank everybody for the birthday wishes yesterday. I'm just battling this cold, but there's one story. There's one story that I want to talk about tonight, and I want to just show you how depraved this nation has gotten. And it is one of the most pitiful things that I've ever heard in my life. And I have heard a lot of weird stuff lately, but this sort of topped the cake today. I'm going to read this story out of Gateway Pundit, and then we're going to say goodnight. We'll deal with this more next week. And I think Jeemes did an excellent job talking about the Middle East tonight. I don't know if you heard about this, but this is something we're going to be following. This would be for a McJustice show. But this was just this afternoon. They reported this yesterday. It's 7 men in Texas were filming themselves gang raping 2 toddlers in a mall bathroom in Houston. One was arrested. There's one of them right there. 29-year-old Arthur Hector Fernandez, a kiosk worker at the Galleria Mall in Houston, for the alleged sexual abuse of 2 toddlers. Fernandez is accused of filming these heinous acts and then posting the videos online. The harrowing discovery was made when the FBI initiated an investigation following a tip off the Australian Centre to Counter Child Exploitation, which had come across the disturbing material on a private, by invitation only, online forum. Investigators report that each of the 4 videos obtained during the investigation depicted separate sexual assaults on the children, taking place in various locations within the mall, including the restrooms. The victims, a 2- and a 3-year-old toddler, were allegedly left in Fernando's care by their parents, who were his acquaintances and fellow mall employees. According to the court documents, Fernandez went trick-or-treating with one of the toddlers in October. The key to cracking the case was a sophisticated search involving an open-source image repository. Detectives managed to identify one of the victimized children by comparing the images to social media posts. A breakthrough came when a sanitized image from the abuse materials were shown to the child's mother, who recognized a distinctive pair of bracelets, items that were later confirmed to belong to Fernandez and his social media profiles. There he is. This is how sick it got. Chilled out board, just ask and I shall tell, and home is Houston with the rainbow flag, with the Cash.App thing. Following the discovery, the FBI conducted a search of his residence, confiscating phones and various devices. He was arrested in December, remains in federal custody. He's currently the only individual charged. However, there were 7 other individuals that are involved in this tonight. Let me just say this about that story, folks. That's how dark our nation has gotten. That is how dark our nation has gotten. There was a murder today I read about of 2 black kids that basically crushed in the chest of a football player, a white kid, wasn't charged with hate crime. The DA didn't feel like he could get murder charges on these kids, so he lowered the standard to manslaughter. They got off today. Didn't even charge him with manslaughter. The jury found him innocent. With cold-blooded, whole-card facts, staring him in the face, these kids did it. They actually admitted and they still got off. Didn't even get charged with manslaughter. Listen, any society and any empire that embraces such debauchery and evil and does it without punishment and does it in that manner and accepts it as normal is not worthy of existence. And not only is it not worthy of existence, but it will destroy itself. And we're on a fast track, folks, of destroying ourselves tonight. We're on a fast track of destroying ourselves with our borders, our legal system, our justice system, our elections, our financial situations. All this effort to change the gasoline, this green energy is the biggest lie from the pit of hell. It is a demonic attempt to transfer wealth, just like the healthcare. By the way, one thing I will mention tonight, did you hear Mr. Fauci, who should hang from a noose for what he's done to this country? He came out there today and admitted what we all knew, that neither the mask or the social distancing, you know, when you had to go into a store or a bank and they made you stand 6 feet apart. I removed money from one bank because of the way I got treated one day, just doing my business in the bank. And they had a security guard there, and he was forcibly making people stand 6 feet apart. If you didn't have a mask on, they told you to go outside. So Chris went outside, but I took my money with me out of that bank, and I let them know why I took my money. I said, I ain't going to be treated like this. I'm sorry. Well, Mr. Fauci, F-A-R-U-D-C-I, he comes out today and admits what we all knew, those of us at least with a brain, that it was not based on science. And I'm going to talk about this next week. I don't have time to do it this week and tonight, and my voice is not strong enough to talk about it like I want to talk about it. But the country was crippled by those 2 mandates, and we were screamed at by the mask wearers and by the vaccinated and by these stores and by all of these organizations. When you went inside to shop for a bag of apples or a carton of milk, that you had to stand 6 feet apart because the science was proven that that would keep you safe from the jab and the COVID. Well, that was a big fat lie. We knew it was a lie then. We certainly know it's a lie tonight. Somebody needs to be in jail for it. I don't wish ill on anybody, but I pray every business that enforce that crap goes bankrupt still. We don't need to forget those businesses that did that to us. I haven't forgot it. I don't shop at some stores anymore because I remember quite well how I was treated 2 or 3 years ago, and it's not been forgotten, and it won't be. It won't be. You don't need to forget it either. It was a lie, folks, and he admits it tonight. Wow. What happens when evil people find Jesus, huh? He's not found Jesus, but that's a metaphor. We knew it all along, right? I think it's fair to say we knew it all along. We knew it all along. Anyway. All right. Listen, I love you tonight. I wish I could spend more time with you. My throat is out. I will see you Sunday morning, Lord willing. Sunday morning, fellowship time, Sunday night. Now, next week, we're going to have a sort of a sketch program. We may even have to come on audio at times this week. We're going to be traveling to Houston. Please be with us a week from tonight in Houston. And then hopefully, when we get back, things get back to normal, and we'll be hitting you hard and heavy in February. You'll get sick of us in February. You'll actually wish for these nights when I'm not on every night. But I want to thank James Kiefer tonight, or James Akers, not Kiefer, James Akers, for a great job tonight. Get his book. Thank you all for being with me tonight. If you've had a good time tonight with James, thank you for the good questions. Put some fire in that house. Follow us on themcfiles.org. We got a Telegram room. You can find that link there. We got these stories on there we've talked about tonight. The story about these terrible 7 men in Houston that did this atrocity. Very sick. Listen, may the Lord bless you. We love you. Thank you again for the great birthday wishes yesterday and even today. And we appreciate that so much. And so forth. Our prayers for you folks in Iowa, Nebraska, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan tonight with these snowstorms. Please be careful out there. There's another one coming next week. We can get some snow in the hills here next week. I'm excited about that because I like the snow. I know some of you don't, but I'm from the South, and I do. Have a good night, everybody. Great week of shows. Thank you for being with me this week. See you this weekend.
It's knowing that your door is always open and your path is free to walk. It makes me tend to leave my sleeping bag rolled up and stashed behind your couch. It's knowing I'm not shackled by forgotten words and bonds and the ink stains that have dried upon some line. That keeps you in the back roads by the rivers of my memory. That keeps you ever gentle on my mind. It's not clinging to the rocks and ivy painted on their columns now that bind me. Or something that somebody said because they thought we'd fit together walking. It's not knowing that the world will not be cursing or forgiving when I walk around the railroad track and find that you're moving on the back roads by the rivers of my memory, and hours you're just gentle on my mind. Though the wheat fields and the clotheslines and the junkyards and the highways come between us, and some other woman's crying to her mother 'cause she turned and I was gone, I still might run in silence, tears of joy might stain my face, and the summer sun might burn me till I'm blind. But not to where I cannot see you walking on the back roads by the rivers flowing gentle on my mind. I dip my cup of soup back from a gurgling, crackling cauldron in some train yard. My beard a rustling towel and a dirty hat pulled low across my face. Through cup hands round the tin can, I pretend to hold you to my breast and find that you're waiting from the back roads by the rivers of my memories, ever smiling, ever gentle on my mind.